what makes love letters so powerful? See, growing up, I received a love letter almost every single day. See, my mom would pack my lunch and she would include a little note. Sometimes it was words of encouragement if I had a test or a project. Sometimes it was a funny joke. Sometimes they were light-hearted poems that she had written herself. And these love letters were a real staple in my childhood. See, I wasn't the only one in my family that received love letters. See, this is a love letter written to my great-grandmother in 1908, written by a gentleman caller named Otis. The letter reads this: "Fall off the roof, fall down the cellar, but don't fall in love with another feller." Love letters are powerful for a lot of different reasons. The thought, the intentionality, the romance, the nostalgia of it all. But I believe that love letters are even more powerful because of another factor: the length of time between each correspondence. Think about it. If my mom would have written pages of funny jokes and words of encouragement and corny poems all on one page and given it to me at the beginning of the year and then never did anything else, it would have been a nice gesture, but it wouldn't have been near as powerful as the daily notes, because there is a length of time and a space of time for each of the words to sink in. A love letter allows time for emotions to digest, to hang on to each word and to each syllable, and there is a span of time to ponder each of the letters. Now, this is a super desired effect whenever trying to express affection, but it's not exactly the desired outcome of other emotional topics. See, the way that we communicate our message is powerful in the way that it will be received. There are different types of communication that we can use depending on the nature of the message that is delivered. See, if we have a more informational message that doesn't necessarily warrant a response, and that doesn't nearly really warrant a response, it's clearly informational. Generally, a memo, a text, an email, these can be used. This could be information about an upcoming luncheon. It could be about having a meeting at 2 o'clock. It could be about coming in to shampoo the carpets on Friday. These are simple announcements, and it doesn't have to be an in-person meeting. In fact, it really shouldn't be. These are meetings that really should just be an email. Now, as we move towards more emotional messaging and more emotional context, such as the beginning of a new project or the start of a new quarter, you might want to use an email or text, but more than likely you'll have a phone call or an in-person meeting or something to that sort to be a little bit more personal. Now, this is in the middle of the spectrum, so it can vary a little bit depending on the actual context of the message. It can sway either way. Generally, with texts, Slacks, emails, I encourage teams to come up with a mutually agreed standard of how many predicted emails that it would take to solve a problem before you pick up the phone. Typically, it's 5 to 6 emails before you are emotionally invested in the conversation that really should be converted to a different medium of communication. So rather than spending several hours or several days or sometimes weeks to solve a challenge, you could just pick up the phone, which can prevent against more miscommunication, a span of time for emotions to build, words to sink in, and for that tension to grow. And then, of course, you have informational, you have this murky middle ground, and then you have emotional feedback and messaging. And in this case, it is important to try to be as personal as possible. I understand that this can be very difficult in our remote, isolated season, but try your best to use Zoom, phone call, understanding of the emotion of the message, and try to get real-time feedback and conversation. See, too often the message that we deliver is perfect, but the method of communication that we use is not taken into consideration. So here's what I want you to do. Take a moment and consider the emotion, and then determine the best method of communication for your team.